All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're deconstructing one of our most primal fears, the violation of our own home. We're going to look at the anatomy of a home intrusion, not through cold statistics, but through the chilling patterns we found in real first-hand accounts.
Seriously, think about it. What's the one sound? Is it a floorboard creaking upstairs when it shouldn't? A doorknob slowly turning? That sound, whatever it is for you, that's where this all begins. It's that single moment where your whole world just shrinks down to you, your home, and the terrifying idea that maybe you're not alone anymore.
So for this explainer, we dug into a collection of true stories about home intrusions. And what we found was, well, it's not just a bunch of scary moments. There are these really distinct recurring patterns in how these things start, how the intruders act, and what it seems they're really after.
So let's start right at the beginning, that exact moment when your feeling of total safety just shatters. And here's the thing, it's almost never a loud crash or a broken window. No, it's something much, much quieter. And honestly, way more unnerving.
You know, what's so wild is how normal these sounds are in any other situation. A knock on the door, a thud in the yard, footsteps. But late at night, when you know you're alone, they completely transform. They become these little signals of a huge threat, the very first crack in the foundation of your security. And that first sound, it often turns into something more direct. It becomes a test. That knock at the door, it's not just a knock, it's an assessment. The intruder is literally trying to gather intel before they even think about breaking a lock. And a really clear pattern starts to emerge here. It's like this four-step probe. First, they come up with a story that's just plausible enough to make you second-guess yourself. You know, a lost camper who needs help. Second, you say no. Third, they pretend to leave. But, and this is step 4, they don't. They just circle the house, looking for another way in, only now they're armed with new information, like who's home and how many people are inside.
And this is where it gets really creepy, because these encounters aren't always random. In one story, 2 men show up late at night asking for the homeowner's parents by name. That one little detail changes everything, right? It means they've done their homework. This isn't just a random house. It's a targeted choice, which makes the whole thing feel deeply personal and planned out.
So you can really see two different tactics here for the same goal. On one hand, you have the deceivers who use a detailed story. But then you have the probers who are way more blunt. In one story, a guy came to the door, said nothing at all, and just physically leaned past the person to scan the inside of the house before walking off. Both are doing reconnaissance, just different ways of gauging the situation. But what happens when that test is over and they actually get inside? This is where the fear completely changes. It's not about a potential threat on the other side of the door anymore. It's about the terrifying reality of an unknown person inside with you. Let's just walk through this one story's timeline, because it captures that slow, dawning horror perfectly. It starts at 3:30 a.m. with a simple, logical assumption. Oh, mom's home early. But then you notice the footsteps. They're wrong. They're slow, methodical, like someone is taking a tour. The house is dark. And then the discovery. A masked man, not stealing, not searching, just sitting at the table, waiting. And that's the part that is just so unbelievably chilling. The man doesn't react. He doesn't threaten. He doesn't even speak. He just stares with an emotionless look. That lack of a clear motive is often so much more frightening than just pure aggression, because you can't reason with it, you can't understand it, and you have absolutely no idea what he's going to do next. And this really brings us to a critical point we saw again and again in these accounts. Their behavior just doesn't line up with someone who wants to grab a laptop and get out fast. Their movements, their quiet observation, it all feels less like a burglary and more like a predator studying its prey in its own territory. So that leads us to the biggest mystery of all. If they aren't there to steal, then what is their goal? What do these people actually want? Well, the evidence strongly suggests it's got nothing to do with stuff. I mean, look at these examples. The masked man walked right past a PlayStation. In another case, an entire house was ransacked, but nothing was taken. And the attic dweller had access to a whole house for a week and just stayed hidden. The takeaway is pretty clear. The goal isn't theft. Something else is going on. Okay, and then you get behavior that is just completely illogical. So this quote is from someone who finds an intruder in their hallway. The intruder sees them, slams their bedroom door shut, and then just walks into the living room. Think about that for a second. Any normal burglar, the second they're discovered, they're gone, they flee. But this person stays. Not only do they stay, they just move to another part of the house.
It defies all the logic of a typical break-in, and it points to a motive that isn't about getting away with something, but something else entirely.
So if the motive isn't material, maybe it's emotional. And there's one powerful theme that keeps coming up over and over, this intense, almost unbelievable rage on the intruders' faces. It's not the frustration of a botched robbery. It's described as this deep, personal anger. It suggests the motive is actually about control or power, where the act of causing terror is the whole point.
And that brings us to the aftermath. Because when an intrusion isn't about what was taken from the house, the damage is almost purely psychological. The real theft is the victim's sense of security, and that's something you can never, ever get back.
We can actually give this a name: a shattered sanctum. It's this specific kind of trauma where the one place on earth you're supposed to feel totally safe, your own home, becomes the source of your deepest anxiety. Every creak in the floor, every shadow in the corner becomes a potential threat.
This quote, it really says it all. The actual event might be over in a few minutes, but the fear is permanent. For this person, and for so many others, the intruder never really leaves. They're just a constant worry, a possibility that lurks in the back of your mind every single day.
So, when we piece it all together, what's the real anatomy of this fear? Well, the primary weapon isn't a crowbar, it's the violation of that safe space itself. We see that intruders often test for weaknesses before they strike, and their motive seems to be psychological. It's about power and terror, not things. The real horror comes from not knowing why they're there. And ultimately, the loss of security is a deep, permanent scar.
And that really is the final haunting question, isn't it? The real horror in these stories isn't just about what happened in those few terrifying minutes. It's about understanding that the real damage is what's left behind long after the intruder is gone. It's the fear itself, a permanent shadow in the one place you should always be able to escape the dark.